because I love spreadsheets, obviously, because it's a tool for the brain. But like, I can't communicate with it. It's impossible. And you can't retrofit it. It's like, I can list a million reasons why you can't, but just can't. And so I was like, oh my God, we have a window here to build a data narrative that actually works. So, like for your student audience, maybe it's useful to understand how careers always pan out.
Nuno Job, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. So you're calling from England today, right?
That is true. I'm calling from Farringdon, England, even though the palm trees or something make it look otherwise.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, Nuno, I'm really excited to dive in with you today about, all the context of your company, Decipad, but in general, your journey as an entrepreneur, as a technologist. You've had a lot of experience doing many, many different things, from the executive level to the entrepreneurial level to the engineering level. And so a lot of different experiences that you've accumulated. And in this short conversation, I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience and what you take away from your journey leading all the way up to Decipad, looking at the way we make sense of numbers and business intelligence and the world of organized number systems. And obviously this is the world which we've as a society have made is such a critical part of our day to day, ever since really, I guess, the birthing of Excel or maybe even earlier. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about your vision for this world and what opportunities lie there. So again, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great point. I've always been very fascinated by numbers, and we use numbers a lot in advertising, in media, in conversations. We use it to make a point, but somehow through the education system, through how we relate to each other, we have this chasm between the numbers that we love and the mathematics that we hate, almost like that. I know it's not true for everyone. My son absolutely loves mathematics, but for both of us, it's the numbers that pull us, but that we do not want to reason with. So I think that you make a very fair point on that disconnect.
Do you have some examples of where we may have this chasms that you're talking about?
I mean, if you look like, very recently, a great man called Daniel Kahneman passed that won the Nobel Prize of Economics while being a psychologist for showing exactly this. The biases that we have with numbers and the way that we use to persuade people, the way that we overestimate events when in reality, maybe they're just on the news a lot with Bayesian statistics. I think that there's a lot of examples. The way as people are so excited to get a discount, but never want to do anything to calculate how, for instance, a saving can change their lives in 10 years, or if a mortgage, buying or renting a house is important. I come from a humble background, I would say, and most of the friends I have and most of the family I have doesn't have the luck and the luxury of the education that I have. And numbers are a big part of it. People don't engage with it because there's almost a belief that they are, not smart enough to do it. And it's absolutely a fallacy. So I feel like there is a very big divide in the world with numbers. I know it sounds very conceptual, but there's a very interesting fact, which is if spreadsheets was a language, which I know sounds ludicrous. Did you know that it would be the third most spoken language in the world? So it'd be English, Mandarin, spreadsheet, something else. Isn't that absolutely lunacy? And to think that that's true, and then you think, oh, but everyone knows spreadsheet. No, very well off people know spreadsheets, but everyone loves numbers, but not everyone can engage with it. And I think that's always been something that is quite central to what I have done throughout my career, throughout my life.
Wow. So if you had to then take apart where really is the problem here. So if everybody loves numbers, yet very few or just the well-off are able to leverage them in meaningful ways, and there are some barriers there. What is in your experience is this barrier?
I think there's definitely a lot that happens in the education system. Michael, I know you're this brilliant student. I was not a brilliant student. And And the thing that I was great at physics and terrible in mathematics, which is kind of an anecdote of itself. And I always struggled to engage with how esoteric of a concept it was. And I think most people just don't go past that barrier ever. And they just decide, maybe I should be a writer. Maybe I should be an artist. I just can't do this. So I think it comes from very early on. And I think it just gets reinforced in people. And that we have people that are knowledge workers that feel comfortable with numbers in one way or another, with one tool like Excel or maybe a different set of tools, but no way to really communicate. And that's really the premise of Decipad. It's a place where people can author their knowledge and others can consume it in a way that when they play with a document, they can understand what impact it has in their life in a way that hopefully inspires them to become the authors themselves.
And so it sounds like you're saying that we have the numbers. We exist in a world where numbers are all around us, and a lot of our day-to-day is based off of these numbers that we accumulate and we create. The problem is then the translation of how do we make meaningful connections out of those numbers, which I guess in the Excel world would be more the formulas aspect, right?
Yeah, it's either static. For instance, you apply for a mortgage and you get a document,
right?
And you can see everything that it is based on one specific thing. Sometimes it's a spreadsheet. When it's a spreadsheet, it's a map of someone's brain. A spreadsheet is the most scary thing a person can send as an attachment because it basically means, look, it's a download of my brain, and you just have to reason with that. I think that's quite scary. And what often happens is that in the meeting, you kind of need to have the brain person in the Zoom to kind of like give responses, validate, is this true or false? And lately, one trend that we saw when we started Decipad was this rise of programmatic notebooks like Jupyter notebooks, where people have real data analyst teams getting insights and giving it sort of in a document format, but not really, because you need to be a coder to decipher it and to actually have meaning of it. And when we started Decipad, that's really what we were thinking. There's a chasm between the people that want to make sense of numbers. And often these people are brilliant. There's people that have a lot of knowledge about a business, but just don't engage for all the reasons we said before. And the people that can actually create this knowledge. And when we started Decipad, that's what we were thinking. We just thought with Jupyter notebooks, with Excel, with all of this, who in their right mind would right now go and say, okay, if I need to create a tool that really helps this, would it be a spreadsheet today? Would it be like these funky cells with text in a corner as a yellow triangle that you hover on and then you read what the person meant and then you have to track back references? I just don't think anyone in the world would ever start like that. And that was the starting point for Decipad.
Amazing. So walk me through the experience that you want your customers to have. So, let's maybe even take a use case or a situation, and then what would be the experience from a consumer perspective of how they would engage with this product?
Well, right now we have teams that author documents that allow their clients, their coworkers to very simply engage and understand how different permutations of their offering could change how they experience their product. For instance, if you're a solar panel company, you might create a proposal that has, something to split all your energy on downtime, or you might want to optimize to do just load kind of uses of your energy. And you can give that to your user that can look through the document, make all those choices and see what's the return in 5 years, as opposed to have something very, very static. Or for instance, if you're doing an insurance policy and you want to understand very quickly how adding your partner to that insurance policy can affect your premium. I think right now it's very difficult because every time you need to do one of those activities, you just have to go in this sales back and forward. And with Decipad, that can be instantaneous. And you can see and really understand what the client is more curious about. Actually, the client is interested in a discount. More often than not, the client is more interested in seeing what's the difference between a premium and a non-premium offering, and how that gives them ROI and how much that costs.
So it almost goes back to what you said with a mortgage document, that somebody would get this document, which would be static, would be very hard to decipher. I guess here's both the fact that it's interactive and allows you to have a play with the document, so that until you get the actual to the bottom insight, which is what's important there.
Yeah, I mean, two examples that I've seen, three that are really interesting. I saw a PE firm send a whole model to an entrepreneur, where the entrepreneur can see what's the exit that they get on day one, but also based on the performance of the business, how much you're going to get after, which typically is not something that, an entrepreneur would just get like an email. And so that way the entrepreneur can say, oh, if I outperform, how does this affect, et cetera. And I've seen a hedge fund that actually modeled a sensitivity analysis over a stock, where they could go, if it was a tech business, so like if the price per developer goes down, what does this mean for the valuation of this business? While at the same time playing with the federal bank interest rate of the United States. So it's like, if the Fed rate goes down and the wages go up, what happens? And for a hedge fund, maybe they normally have like a data team doing that, and they could just, slide a little bit and have a discussion, not about the data, but a discussion about the decision that they have to make. Should we or should we not invest in this company?
And so how do you measure your success here? There's obviously the way that, startups measure their success in terms of, engagement and the different ARR metrics. But I'm curious from a product perspective, how do you, because you're also very driven by a shift in consumer behavior or providing a newfound experience, how do you then think through how to assess yourself on whether you're actually moving towards your vision for a new reality here?
It's a really complicated balance in products of this nature. I've spoken with plenty of founders that both very early on just made the decision of going, we live by the client. Our clients are CFOs at companies between 200 and 500. So we're going to build a FP&A tool just for those consumers. And it's going to always work with these guardrails, and that's our product. And I also spoke with a bunch of founders that we're going to build the foundation, the baseline of what this product is. And then we're going to find the beachhead that we're going to explore, and we're going to go in a more horizontal manner, the horizontal versus vertical. Both the founders I'm thinking about, I don't want to quote them because I don't want to put them on the spot, are very, very successful and build multi-billion-dollar businesses. For Decipad, we definitely thought that for us to achieve our mission of helping people have a better relationship with numbers, we needed to go horizontal first. Now, going horizontal first is, I think, I'm sure that the other people would say the opposite, but it's like the most difficult journey. Because as you say, like it's much easier to have metrics when you have a very concrete go-to-market and you are focused on a single persona and a single problem to solve, as opposed to, here is my tool. Now let me find this beachhead that really works. But for the mission and for what I've been working all my career, it only made sense to try to change the consumer behavior too. That's what I wanted to do, to give a tool that allows consumers to engage with numbers.
Very, very nice. Tell me a little bit about the company, the formation, where you're at today.
Yeah, I think that a lot of your audience is maybe students, maybe they're thinking of doing a startup. And if you're not, I apologize, but I'm mostly going to speak to the students because I was one myself. I was a computer science student, and I didn't really think much of entrepreneurship, maybe because I didn't even know what the word meant. And only when I went to New York, I really opened my eyes to this as a reality. I worked mostly in databases and in document databases. And it was really interesting to see, because document databases, unlike relational databases, now they're popular with the term NoSQL that showed up like around 2012, 2013, maybe earlier, 2008. I don't remember. But document databases were a very niche thing, and publishers needed to integrate all these documents. And I saw the need to make sense of these relations between numbers and long-term documents, mostly in financial services, from when I was on those days. But it's so difficult, like you need a database expert, you need an app expert. And I went through my career kind of hopping through database in New York, in IBM, to San Francisco and MarkLogic. And I was always seeing people with these kind of problems, and they were really excited about using documents more. But we live in a world that is for apps. It's relational database and apps. And documents are, which I always found it was ludicrous, because most of us live 95% of our time in documents, not in apps. But somehow the whole ecosystem is built around apps and relations, and not like this context that I have. So for your students listening, that was kind of like, it wasn't, I'm going to start a company one day. I kind of like went through my interest areas, which I think remain the same today, and always through the passion that I had for the topics that I loved. Back when I was in San Francisco, I met a couple of people that were building this new technology called Node.js. So I decided to move away.
This small new technology in the background.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I remember talking to Ryan like the first time I met him, and he thought that I went to a fancy university because I knew functional programming, and I realized that the United States really has a gap there. But I remember telling him, like, JavaScript in the server, right? You stupid. You sound like a smart man. But him and a bunch more people were really motivated to create this technology. And I thought it was really exciting. I started writing programs in it, and I created this company in New York City called Created. I mean, I was hired by the founders and became one of the executives. That was the original Node.js platform as a service. It had quite a big footprint. It got sold to GoDaddy Inc. But I was still in the same path. Before it was documents and databases, and now I was helping developers deliver these experiences. So I just felt like the database, there's a lot of NoSQL databases like MongoDB and CouchDB, and you can deliver these really simple apps that, unlike Java, we just like, turnkey, 7 lines of code, and you can do something useful without being like miserable for 40 minutes while deployed. And that was really, really like a great time. And, as a student, I look back and like, I was still like from intern to full-time employee almost. I still look back at those times as some of the times that I worked the hardest and that I learned the most. Then I moved to London because building Nodejitsu was, well, it's always complicated when you build a business. I didn't want to use venture capital again because I got a little bit burned there. Nothing wrong with it, but different businesses require different things. I kind of serendipitously started a consultancy. By now, I had lots of experience working with clients. And I've always been a big fan of McKinsey, which I know is not something very popular, but the original McKinsey. So I thought, like, I'll build a consulting, software engineering, like, they're consultants. Like, what if software was a top level thing at like the executive level? And yeah, I bootstrapped that business from, zero to about $20 million. It's still a family-owned business, quote unquote. And once again, now I had two parts of me that wanted to use this sort of software. One was obviously I needed to give reports to clients, and I needed to do calculations, which I just did in spreadsheets and send them to download on my brain. Good riddance to them. And the other one was I started, as the business scaled very rapidly, I figured out that there was a massive gap in software. It's like when you start, you're kind of doing everything. You go to 30 people, you're kind of doing everything. And then you maybe install Xero or a QuickBooks and you're kind of okay. You outsource to an FD, you're okay. But then you're 50 or 60. And all of a sudden, people are banging on your door with CRMs, ERPs, all of this crap. And all you've built is this beautiful network of people that like working together and are really nice and smart, and they deliver. And some guy is telling you to install this ERP that they use to sell shoes or in North America or in Asia. I'm like, I couldn't care less. This is, for a fee of $40,000, we'll install it. And you can, I'm like, so I actually started like building a bunch of Google Sheets that integrated with like JavaScript. And we had like a team of like 5 engineers at once, like just doing this because I was, as someone scaling a company, I was like, I do not want to use these enterprise softwares. Like I feel like that software was built for the auditors. Like you're going to be audited. You're big enough. Okay. You have to pay for this software. But no, I just wanted skills. I wanted to give people the freedom to have an operative system. And once again, that took me straight up to what Decipad is. The funny thing is, throughout all of this, my career, and I think for most of your listeners, like I never cared about being a leader. I actually always found that a bit uncomfortable, to be perfectly honest. I love helping people. I don't like telling people what to do necessarily. I never focused on money. Even companies that I advised that went on to be very successful, I did it like for nothing. And luckily enough, people then gave me something back. And I always kind of followed the same path of the passions that I always had in one way or the other. And I never thought of profiteering from it, like even though this was like throughout my career, something I was just like, well, whatever. It's like, I'm not going to do something about it unless there's something to do. Then COVID came and I took some time off. By that time, a friend of mine, which I helped from very early on to like an exit called Matthias Walowski, had sold his company, which was a big exit for me personally because I was, I think, one of probably the first person to give that company money. I do a lot of angel investments. I'm very proud of them. They're great companies. If anyone wants to check, I'm sure you can share the link. But I had an exit there. Wildly was a fairly established business, so I had no requirements. So in COVID, I was really thinking what to do next. And it was that finally then that I got up to this idea. Even though it's been building all of these years, I was like, one thing that aggravated me in the consultancy, I've done lots of digital transformation projects like, the New Vogue or, I shouldn't list, or the New Economist. But when you do all those projects, one thing that I started noticing in the late years to 2019, 2020 was everyone talking about AI. And me, I studied machine learning and cryptography in school. So everyone talking about cryptocurrencies and AI really got me freaked out because I thought it was like these far-fetched mathematical things I had studied. So when COVID came, I decided to study it a bit, kind of do a recap. And I actually did a great course from Stanford called CS321N. I didn't pay for it. I just did the GitHub thing. And that's
deep neural networks.
Yeah. And it blew me away that I did everything in a Jupyter notebook with no student like friends, with no teacher, nothing. I just went there and wrote some stuff. And I probably don't know anything, but I felt like I learned something or at least recap my knowledge. And maybe that's when I did the worst turn in my life, because I could have focused entirely on AI and I focused entirely on the document. I was like, this is the gap that I've been looking for. You can build a data narrative with these numbers. I don't have to like go back to that spreadsheet and have to communicate there, because I love spreadsheets, obviously, because it's a tool for the brain. But like, I can't communicate with that. It's impossible. And you can't retrofit it. It's like, I can list a million reasons why you can't, but you just can't. And so I was like, oh my God, we have a window here to build a data narrative that actually works. So, I think like for your student audience, maybe it's useful to understand how careers always pan out.
It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for all the mentors I had and all the people. I'm meeting one of them today that really gave me the opportunity to step up. Working with incredible people was a big part of this. But I always find it inspiring when I talk to people growing up and I see like this big smile that is connected by one single topic that they just love being good at, and they just keep doing it. And it can take you many different ways, but it's normally people that are very happy.
No, this is fascinating. I wrote so much for myself especially over the last 10 minutes or so. This is what a journey, and something that I think every entrepreneur should hear. So thank you very, very much for sharing this with me. And I want to thank you for coming on this show and this program. I really appreciate it. And wishing you best of luck with Decipad and everything that you're doing. And I'm excited to use the product myself. So thank you very much for the inspiration, Nuno.
Thank you. And by the way, if any of the listeners needs anything, feel free to shoot me an email. I'm very easy to find and I'm always happy to help.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.